All right. I think we're live, ladies. Hello, welcome everyone. Um, Thanks for joining us for Ask the Hoosier Genealogists. Um, let's see. My name is Kaye Ford. I am the chair of the Publications Committee. And joining me tonight is we have Sue Caldwell. She is the IGS Vice President. We have Donna Adams. She's the IGS Southwest District Director. And we have Ms. Marlene Polster. She's the chair of our Indiana County Genealogists Committee. So if you have any questions about that, ask her. So ask the Hoosier Genealogist. This is just a panel discussion. We have a few questions that were presented to us about oh, different topics and ways we could give guidance and maybe point people in a direction that they hadn't thought of. It helps us too. It helps us, keeps us on our toes. And it's kind of a crowd sourcing kind of thing, where we help each other. So I'm just going to move right along. We did this about 6 months ago, and we had a really nice response. This time around, we are looking at, there's like about 7 different counties, kind of from central to southern Indiana. So northern Indiana, we need some questions from you folks. But yes, one of the reasons we'd love to do the research, on pretty much any genealogist would. But we'd have to add another 24 hours to each day. And we want you to have the thrill of finding these records. So we're happy to point you in the right direction. And, when you break through a brick wall or you find some elusive document, that's your success. And we want you to have that. So our first question, and this was quite interesting. It's about a gentleman named Elmer Carter, and there's a story that he spied on the Ku Klux Klan. And so you can read the story on the screen, that he hid in the floor of a church while the Klan was meeting, and he would listen to their plans and then go warn people. And someone found out he was doing that, and they dumped kerosene into his well. So he grew up in Posey County, and then after he married, he moved over to Gibson County. Let me see. So Posey and Gibson County are down right at the southwestern corner of the state, right in the toe there. So Luann Clue, our Northwest District Director, suggested sometimes she has seen KKK symbols on tombstones. That might be something if you've found those symbols in a cemetery that might point you in a direction. This person, Scotty, has checked newspapers at the time, didn't find anything, and stories like these are probably not going to pop up because of the nature of the story. Um, so my first thought was I wanted to find out more about the Ku Klux Klan in Gibson County, since he was an adult when he spied on them. And so I just poked around, and lo and behold, the Ku Klux Klan had a newspaper uh, in Indiana. It's digitized at Hoosier State Chronicles, and they did have a organization, I guess, in 1923 in Gibson County. So now there's a time period of when this may have happened. And then I found out that Elmer, he was closely associated with the New Liberty Church in Gibson County. And I also found an article in a newspaper where Carter was a trustee of a cemetery, and a church was built there in 1924. The new Mount Moriah Cumberland Presbyterian Church. So, yeah, in my mind, I'm thinking this church is being built. It'd be kind of easy for him to hide in a floorboard, and if these people are meeting in a church that's not open, yeah. So that's just how my mind worked. So I had the link for the newspaper for the Ku Klux Klan. I think it's called the Fiery Cross. And those could be searched for number 87. I looked through a couple around June 23rd, 1923, and there's quite a bit of information in those newspapers. And then I also thought about checking Gibson County page on our new website. And there are links there for libraries and museums. And since Gibson County is located just north of Evansville, I'd probably look in those newspapers, those larger newspapers, for Klan-related events. And then I'd probably look in the county courthouse to see if Carter had filed any civil suits against anyone. So did you ladies have anything to add to this?
Yes.
Quite
I
interesting.
I do know that, verifying these types of stories is very difficult. And I researched some of the newspapers as well and did not find anything pertaining, to the story, as I probably thought, I wouldn't, because of the type of story it is, with the Ku Klux Klan. They don't normally put those kinds of stories, in newspapers. But I found something interesting, that they said that he attended Miriam College, which is just right out my front door. um, it was called the Union Christian College, and I've looked for documents for his name on the student list. I figured if he attended the Union Christian College, um, I thought it might have been between the years of 1888 and 1891, but I did not find his name on any of the student list. Now, I just had a real short time to look at these, so I haven't looked at every single one of them. Um, but they are, some of them, available on indianamemory.org. And if you go to Indiana Memory, then you can, on the contributors, you will find Miriam Camp and Retreat Center, and it's within those collections. So that's another place that they could look for information about his schooling
Mhm.
if he did attend Union Christian College at Miram.
Very interesting.
Would the state archives have anything?
Possibly.
That's one place I
Mhm.
would check, I think.
Gibson County also has a lot of records on indianamemory.org that
That would be good.
you never know. There could be something in their records that they've submitted that has, information about, um, stories such as this. You just never know.
Yeah.
But it's worth checking out.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank
And
you.
even maybe going a little further out, like say, try Vincennes newspapers.
Mhm.
Because sometimes they don't make the local papers, but you might find something in a paper that's a few counties away, or even
Mhm.
come up a little north to see if it
Yeah.
was in a paper.
Mhm. I even thought about Louisville, Kentucky,
Yeah,
Across the
Indianapolis,
river.
even.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm. And these are just a couple of the articles that I mentioned before. How I found that church being built, and there was some issue between the cemetery association and the church. And then let's see, Elmer's wife and then Elmer himself, when they passed away, their services were held at the same church, and they were both buried at the cemetery that he was a trustee at. So I was looking at connections, but yeah, there is a lot out there. In the newspapers, not so much under Elmer Carter's name, but other happenings going on.
Mhm.
So that was where my mind went. But thanks for your thoughts for adding to that. Question number 2. Ms. Harness asks, they're looking for a missing link in the Harness family so they can trace the right branch back. And she wanted to know what kind of info should she send. And go ahead. I was just I thought the basics, names, dates, and places, starting with herself and going backwards. And then it sounds like there may be same name people. And you don't want to waste time tracing the wrong person, but sometimes you have to rule them out or to rule someone in. And so sometimes you have to spend the time. And then I just gave some examples of names, dates, and places.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
The thing of it is, a lot of times when people send a request, they don't send like the full names or that they know and the dates and the places. We have to know those things in order to start a research, because you will go right down the wrong path pretty quickly. So those are very important things for us to know if we are going to help you with your research.
I know. Sometimes it feels like a waste of time to go down that wrong branch. But on the other hand, you've ruled that out.
That's true.
So even though it felt like a waste of time, it had value. Um,
You never know what you're going to find in a record.
mhm.
Especially in land records. Sometimes I have found where I was able to prove a son to his father because the father was selling the land to his son in another state and county. So even
Nice.
looking at any of the records you've listed, that's awesome. That's exactly what you need to do. Unfortunately, sometimes when you've got common names, you have to rule some out. And
Oh,
it takes time, but you got to do it.
mhm. I should add on their wills and probates.
Exactly. Yeah.
Getting ready to say that, wills and probates.
Yeah. I didn't catch it, wasn't there. Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
major one. And then with your names, you could go into the whole thing of did someone write it down how they heard it? You know,
Yeah.
Do people were they educated to spell or it could look really strange, but it's just how they heard it.
Yeah.
And that's what was written. And then there's the whole issue of did someone tell the truth about their age? That sometimes they did, sometimes they
Yeah.
fudge it a little, depending on
Yeah.
why they needed to. But so, there's kind of a lot that goes into it. But if you start with yourself, then your parents and grandparents, that's a good start
Yeah.
to work backwards and try to get that right line. Sometimes it can be challenging.
And like you said, Kate, don't dismiss spelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because
Mhm.
if you sit there and you think that's the only way it's spelled, you will not find your people.
And
Mhm.
sometimes, especially with some of the foreign languages, when they were transcribed, it may start with one letter of the alphabet in the German language, say, but another in the American. That's a frequent.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
You're right, Sue. Yeah.
I've seen some where when I sound it out, or
Yeah.
it looks really odd, but when I say it out loud, it's like I see what they're what they're getting at. It sounds like it. It just doesn't look like
Yeah.
what I expect.
Yeah. You got to kind of look at some old script. Like I used to tell people to remember when we were in school and they always had the alphabet over the chalkboard in cursive. Well, look at those letters and see, okay, they're writing your court records in script. And could that be a P or a B, an H, or can it look like an I or a W sometimes?
Mhm.
You got to imagine what it could be sometimes,
Mhm. It's another challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had that surname I was looking at, and I was spelling it the way I always thought it to be spelled, the two different ways. And I stuck it into Family Search one day again, and up came the name with not an R at the end, but an L. I go, wait a minute, the first name's right, but that L isn't right, but I'm going to go look at that record. And sure enough, that was my guy.
Mhm.
And
Awesome.
so don't let spelling hinder you
Mhm.
because of the way people spoke way back when, too.
Mhm.
Take the
Well,
blinders off sometimes.
Yeah.
first names can be spelled a million different ways too. And
Yeah.
I've been researching this Helena Davison, who was the first woman ordained in the United Methodist Church. I have found her name listed as Ellen, Helen, Helenor, Helener,
Yeah.
and so on.
Oh, yeah.
I even found a transcription of a tax record that showed her living with John Draper, but her name was listed as Homer. It's just
There you go. Yeah.
you just don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And just when you think all the variations, a new one will pop up.
Pop up. Exactly.
Like Homer. I
Yeah.
mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Homer?
Yeah.
For Eleanor.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
So,
Just don't look at indexes. Go in and look at that record,
mhm.
because we all have found 1 or 2, 3 different spellings of the same name in one record.
One record.
Yes.
Mhm.
So that would be my hint to go and
Mhm. Yeah. Definitely
Yeah.
try to hunt down the original
yeah,
or a digital copy as close as you can get.
yes.
Okay. Anything else to add?
I don't think so.
All righty. See. So this came from my county. And I'm leaving the name off because it has to do with property and where people are living. So, um, but I found it interesting because um, the neighbors had told the property owner that there was old timber used in the construction of their modern home, and it was either a schoolhouse or a church. And so they wanted to learn more about the history of the property. So basically what I did is I take the present day address, and they're out in the county, so not in the towns or the city. And I look in where it's located in the county. I then go to the plat maps, and from the plat maps, I can usually figure out who owned the property in the past. And then they can take that name and check the county recorder for land records and township histories. And here again, spelling varieties for names. And we just covered that. And I had to look into church records, city directories, military records for the pensions, land records, and maps to figure out more about previous owners. Um, I do have it, and then I just this is what I shared with the person on what I found. We actually at the Historical Society have a dissertation on early Henry County schools. So I looked for that township and looked for information about schools in the township. And there was a description of a schoolhouse that I shared with this person. And I also learned that there was, let me see. I thought I had it on here. A state mandate where the townships had to have a school within every 2 square miles.
Mhm.
So I knew where the property was, and on these plat maps, the schools were marked.
Yep.
So this is what I found, and it's probably hard to see. The one on the left's the oldest, and then the one on the right's the more current, 1893. But the blue dots, like on this middle one, are schools,
Mhm.
and the red circles where the property is located. So I, at one point it may have been used as like a casual schoolhouse until this blue dot came about, but it's real close. It could have been used as a place of worship too. So I love maps, and I like to study those plat maps, and the ones we have for Henry County are, we're blessed to have those. But yeah, they that's kind of how I went about figuring something out about his property.
It's important that you mentioned that it may have been a church also, because in that time, many churches didn't exist as a church building. They met in people's houses or they met in local schools until they finally grew enough that they could afford to build a church building.
Right.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
One place you might want to check if you can get to them is your county commissioner records.
Okay.
Those usually, if the county's paying for anything, a lot of times it is written in the county commissioner's records when a school was built, a bridge was built, maybe there was a creek and they had to put a bridge across it for the kids to get to the school or to church.
Right.
So you might have, if you can get to them, county commissioner records can be very awesome.
That's excellent.
And
They're just
trustee
not-
records a lot of times have something similar to that in them.
They're just not
When they
indexed.
paid for certain things.
Those are great ideas. And I didn't even, we have old commissioners' records where they Xeroxed them like a mimeograph. So it's not the best copy and they're not indexed. So
Yeah, they're never indexed. If you've got the great big old books, they're never indexed.
Oh, indexers, how I love thee.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's I found that intriguing, and I could have sworn I found that somewhere. Oh, it was I think it was in the plat map in 1853. They were in favor of building a schoolhouse in the center of each 2-mile square. And so when you look at these squares, that's a mile square. So there's one there, one there. So that just went right up the line. I didn't mark them on the other side of the township because I was showing him that. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting for with your historic properties and learning more about them. Anything else? Any other ideas? We'll move on to question number 4. Okay, this one has to do with adoption. And Miss Hagee has been looking for information on James Moss. And according to the 1880 census, he was adopted. And his adoptive parents' names were there mentioned. And I'm sorry, Donna, Vigo or Vigo?
However you want to say it. People say it both ways.
Okay.
I say Vigo and sometimes I say Vigo. So.
Okay. So I responded back to Barbara, and these are things I told her. But Donna is from that area, so I'll let her share some ideas.
Okay. So first of all, sometimes even though it says they were adopted, doesn't mean they were on a census. And I'm saying that because I have that in my family. There was my great grandmother was living in a family and it says adopted daughter, but they did not officially adopt her. She just was living there with them. So but my thinking is, they were, if you know, if you want to look in the Vigo County records, I would definitely try to see what they have as far as court records of familysearch.org. You might try the records in Greencastle, of course, as well, in the courthouse records. There's so many types of courthouse records that you could search in. I would not leave anything out. I mean, I would just, if it was me, I would be searching through everything that's available. Because you just never know where you're going to find the answer. It's so early that I'm thinking maybe there was more of a guardianship record, maybe that might maybe shed some light on this. And if those could be checked, sadly though, a lot of times those are not indexed. And they're not something that is readily available. It's something that you have to go to the courthouse to ask for. I would definitely check those records in Vigo and Putnam County. That's basically what I would do. And
I did find one in a guardianship bond book.
Yeah.
Because in this case, though, you can look for something around that time where maybe the mother of the baby sued somebody else for support.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Yeah. What about apprenticeship books? Maybe it might be in there if you can find some apprenticeship records.
Right.
it's like I said, do not count any records out, that could be probable. You want to check when you go to the courthouse, you try to check everything that you could think of that might have something in it. I mean, sometimes it's the most illogical one that you could, think of. You're like, oh my goodness, there it is. And you would never thought.
Yeah.
I know. Isn't that strange how that happens?
It is. It is.
And then maybe even a newspaper. It might not say adoption, but maybe just a simple little story about him.
That's true.
Or the parents, any of the parents or a sibling. It just might show something.
I have found birth records in poorhouse records.
I was just about to say, I was wondering about asylums.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And there was a children's home. Actually, I think there was 2 of them in Vigo County. So, some of those records are on the IGS website, I think.
And a lot of times you can find those records on the federal taxes. And like we had an orphanage here in Rensselaer. And it was at a Catholic orphanage, and they wouldn't give us any records. But if you go to the indexes, everybody that worked at that and down to the littlest baby they were taking care of were on the census records. But they weren't in the regular ones. You had to look at the ones under the orphanage.
Again, maybe the orphanage might also be in the commissioner's records. If the commissioners are paying for food or anything, for clothing for those children, you might again find those in the commissioner records or in the newspapers listings.
There's some great ideas. When I look at the map, sometimes I have to look at maps to see where
Sure.
counties are located. And Clay County is kind of right in between Vigo and Putnam.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would probably exhaust Putnam and Vigo first. And if I was just not finding anything, Clay County would be the next.
Check the surrounding counties,
Yeah.
definitely.
Oh my gosh. And it's so close to Illinois, it might even hopped over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that can go into it sometimes. So
Exhausted research. That's all you
yes.
can do.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I looked up the census and it did say adopted and his death certificate. And so I tried to get a little window of time to, help narrow things down. So hopefully that helps out and she finds an answer.
Well, then the answer, there's also the option now of going to somebody with DNA.
Mhm.
Seeing who
Absolutely.
you
Yes,
match up to
DNA.
and start that process. And
Yeah.
that's probably the best thing you can do now.
Mm-hmm. And it's relatively
Very true.
not that far back
Mm-mm.
to match descendants. Awesome. Thank you so much. Our last question was actually submitted last time. And it's kind of multifaceted. And so we answered it last time with some ideas. So this is about early settlers getting across the Ohio River from Kentucky into Indiana. And so I reread the information that Anne gave to us. And one thing that this time I noticed was Levi Boyer's Ferry. So I kind of glossed over that last time. So I took a look at Levi Boyer, and he actually there's a historical marker for where his ferry was located. And there's a little biography from his grandson. And apparently when Boyer made it to Westport, Kentucky, he walked to Old Vincennes to claim his land. So then I started thinking, well, maybe these folks, I think their land grants actually state Jeffersonville is where they bought the land. But then, I was thinking, well, maybe did they wander up to Vincennes? It was just one of those things that crossed my mind. I looked up some Stevenson's, Stark, Chastain, and Hope on the Bureau of Land Management General Land Office website. And I think the grants I found were Jeffersonville. So yeah, they probably didn't go to Vincennes, but I just thought, it's one more thing to check. And the current location of the original Jeffersonville land office, I searched for that the last time, and I found a Baird's History of Clark County, Indiana, for the original Jeffersonville land office. I wasn't able to figure it out. So I had some links for the Clark County Museum and the public library in Jeffersonville to see if they knew where that land office was located. Because I could not find an answer on the World Wide Web. So but then we've added some records here to check. Sue gave us a great idea, check school records. And if you want to talk about those, Sue, share some more about those.
Well, especially in a rural area, I'm from Jasper County. School records are invaluable for finding people, especially those who lived in the county for only a few years between censuses. They took enumerations to see how many students they would have in each grade, so they knew how many teachers to hire. And you will often find all the kids listed, or at least the kids of school age. You will find somebody had in the family had to provide the information. You will have their name, and then often the others. It's usually the mother that provides the information because the father's out working. But the father is frequently listed too. It will show when they moved from one school to another school. It might be in another township. Sometimes they will list the name of the school they were enumerating for, but at least you knew what township they were in and could start searching for the schools in that area at that time and maybe figure out approximately where they lived and how many years they were in that area. I think they're really valuable.
Very valuable.
They are, well, especially up here, since I'm in Lake County, we found that after the railroads came, we were losing people about every 2 years. And then we got the school enumerations and we started seeing where Daddy worked for the railroad. So every couple of years, he got put up into another station and the whole family would move. And there they were in another school enumeration, someplace in another, part of the county.
Well, and I
So,
also mentioned earlier that a lot of people who were living and working on farms didn't own the land. So you find absolutely no land records in their names. They were renters only. So these schools are one of the closest things to get in their location because they're within a couple of miles or so, or a few miles of the school.
yeah.
That's great. Yeah, those are often overlooked.
Yeah.
And Sue also suggested like occupational ledgers, such as like a blacksmith's records, because people had to use a blacksmith or a dentist or a physician or a general store.
Mm-hmm.
And those things are just chock full of information. And it's more like it puts a person in a place at a time.
Sure does.
It might give you a little bit of information about why they had to see the doctor or what they were buying at the store or what they had the blacksmith do.
Or when a
So-
baby was born. There's your birth record if it's before birth record times. Yeah.
Another interesting thing is the organizational records to prove people around your area. I had no proof that my husband's grandfather or great-grandfather lived in Rensselaer, Indiana until I found a GAR post record that he joined the post in Rensselaer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. There's, you just never know what you'll find. That's kind of the common thread here. So yes, I like the question, about the migration into Indiana and how people manage to get over here. And but if anyone does find out where the Jeffersonville land office was located, please share it with us. Because now I'd like to know. But that was the 5 questions we had. And let's see. I am going to share a little bit about our next Facebook Live. It's going to be me and talking about organizing your genealogical records traditionally and digitally. On April Fool's Day, it's not a joke. It is in no way a joke. And then I would like to share that our annual conference is upcoming April 11th and 12th. And we are just overjoyed to welcome Sunny Morton on the 12th. And on April 11th, we will have lovely speakers from the Allen County Public Library. I've added the registration link here. If you go to our new website, the homepage, just scroll down and it will jump out at you for more details and how to register.
Or they can
And-
just scan that QR code at the bottom.
You can just pause this recording and get your information from that QR code. It's going to be a hybrid conference, in person and on Zoom. And members do get a discount. So if you'd like to become a member, the link is there in the middle of the screen. And our next Ask the Hoosier Genealogist, it will probably be in 3 months or maybe 6. We're still trying to decide. So if you send us a lot of questions, it will be in 3 months. And if we don't get a lot of questions, it'll be in 6 months. So we can build some up. Just to let you know, we really can't do the research for you. We do love to look things up and point you in the right direction. We just want you to have that thrill of finding the information about your ancestors. That's something that can't be replicated, and I don't want to take that from someone. I just like to help you get there. But that is all I have. Ladies, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you. I think this is great. And hopefully they will take some advice and hopefully we'll be able to find some things. This is exciting. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate you spending the time with us and sharing your knowledge and expertise. It is always welcome and greatly appreciated. So we are going to bid you adieu. And usually John Marie's with me. She is heading over to Hawaii. So we'll see her on April 1st.
Okay.
And that's not a joke. So thank you all for spending your Tuesday with us. And please just reach out publications at indiegenes.org if you have a question that you would like for us to mull it over and give you some ideas. We're happy to do it. So thank you all, and I am going to stop that, and we will talk to you in a couple weeks.
It's been
Bye.
fun.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.